Among the fields of straw and stover, clocked in till the work day's over. Time's a gentle stream, longer than it seems. Patient is the night.
Nothing encompasses the season of autumn better than Over the Garden Wall. It's got everything covered. Halloween, Thanksgiving, leaves, and it ends with the setting being consumed by winter, showing how short the fall season can be, just like the only season of this show. Over the Garden Wall is only 10 episodes, each 11 minutes a pop. Every chapter is able to stand on its own, yet together it forms a complete story with the scale, and more importantly, the conclusiveness of a feature film. It's unorthodox, but I wouldn't have it structured any other way. Nah, just kidding, I want more. There was so much to love. The complexity and bickering between the characters, the mysterious colonial-inspired setting with nearly limitless possibilities, and animation so high quality they had to switch to a different studio midway through production. I don't know if that was a financially intelligent decision, but it sure did give us some pretty moving pictures. This miniseries is too good to be confined to just 10 episodes, and I always wondered if any more were planned, or where those stories ended up in the 5 years since it premiered. Spoilers lie ahead as I tediously climb back over the garden wall and dig through its history and afterlife.
What'd you find?
A skeleton!
Ah!
In 2006, recent CalArts graduate Patrick Mihail pitched Cartoon Network 2 series. The first was Space Planet, which would have been a short in the network's Cartoon Institute pilot program. It would go on to inspire Adventure Time and its characters in a variety of ways, but it was scrapped when Mihail couldn't bring himself to cut out 4 minutes to meet the 7-minute time limit. The other series he proposed was titled Tome of the Unknown. It was to be about two brothers, Gregory and Walter, who accidentally board a train headed for the afterlife, and when they jump off, they're confronted by a devil named Old Scratch within a forest. Old Scratch promises to return the brothers home if they read the titular tome of forgotten stories, which he then tears apart and the pages fly across the land of the in-between. Now Gregory and Walter must track down the pages as the events of their stories come to life. Cartoon Network initially wanted to turn Tome of the Unknown into a feature film, but Mihail refused, not yet knowing how to translate the structure or the style of his pitch drawings onto the big screen. 6 years later, he was given the chance to pitch another pilot in 2012, and this is where Tome of the Unknown evolved to become closer to what we know today. The premise only received minor tweaks, like having the in-between become the unknown. The newly renamed Wart was going to have a button nose, but it was changed to a triangle to make him seem like more of a teenager. I know, this is riveting stuff. Greg was to originally wear a sailor suit, but that became a Johnny Appleseed outfit to make him more distinct from the similarly peppy Flapjack. Beatrice was given more emphasis and was changed from a bee to a bluebird, making her more fit for fall weather. Old Scratch wasn't present in this version, but he was changed from a version of the devil to the more mystical beast in order to appease, and I quote, any corporate parties concerned about including a variation of the Judeo-Christian devil in a kids show. It's good to know that the audience of easily angered moms with Change.org accounts was also taken into account during development. The Woodsman was more of a direct spiritual guide for Wirt and Greg, one who sets the brothers on their journey and always observes them to make sure they stay on the right path. He would end up being the one who trapped the two in the unknown by rewriting the tome while being manipulated by an evil spirit. Episodes would have had darker and stranger threats, like a skinless witch who kidnaps Greg and rides him like a horse, and a man who carves ivory out of the bones and teeth of children he kidnaps. I am so very glad that these ideas were not animated. The proposed list of story ideas had a few other concepts of note. Lovesick Millionaire would be reworked into Mad Love, except with a twist that has not aged very well. Chapter 6, Lullaby in Frogland, was meant to be 2 different episodes, with the Adelaide-centric half originally intended to be separate. As outlined in the Frogland story idea, after our heroes traveled downstream on the ferry, they would have met Jay Bliss, the father of Greg's frog, known in this draft as R. Bliss. R. Bliss would have contemplated staying with his father until Jay Bliss disappears in the middle of the night, because, oh yeah, he just happens to be a fugitive. A lot of Adventure Time crew members worked on Over the Garden Wall, so this Deadbeat Dad storyline doesn't surprise me in the slightest. At this stage, the show was pitched as a full series with story arcs that would cover at least 3 seasons. Tome of the Unknown received the green light, and the following year, the pilot episode was released. McHale originally pitched a prototype of Chapter 7, The Ringing of the Bell, to be the pilot, with more Beatrice and a radically different beginning and end. That was deemed to be too scary by Cartoon Network, prompting the creation of the much more lighthearted Harvest Melody. This is the closest to a Chapter 11 that we're going to get. The pilot functions as a standalone story, where Greg and Wirt get sick of walking and borrow the vegetable car of the songwriter John Crops. He takes them to the big city, which is just an open field with a gazebo, and this man needs higher standards for what he considers exciting in his life. It is populated by a lot of other vegetable people, who are attacked by crows, turkeys, and an alligator. Although what you really gotta look out for is this agonizingly sad cat, whose tears are out to attack my heart. The differences from the series proper are small. The narration and some of the animation of the opening would be recycled later on.
Somewhere lost in the clouded annals of history lies a place that few have seen. A mysterious place called the Unknown.
Somewhere lost in the clouded annals of history lies a place called the Unknown.
The narrator himself had a much greater presence. Beatrice had more playful banter with Wirt, and both had a different voice actor or actress.
I'm stumped. It's all just vegetables to me.
I'll say, you don't even know how to start the engine.
I do know how to start the engine. You just... Oh. Hey, what? I'm not a pushover.
Hold on, Wirt. Let me get to my point.
Fine.
Most notably, the characters aren't drawn very rigidly on model. Probably because there weren't any storyboard revisionists, or at least none appear to have been credited. Most pilots are unfinished products, so of course it's not going to look as good as the product that follows it. The loose drawings do make Greg's frog appear to be cuter than ever, so it's still got some charm. After Harvest Melody wrapped production, Cartoon Network ordered a Tome of the Unknown miniseries.
Would you be willing to take a peek over the garden wall?
Patrick McHale was against doing a full series, for it would be too difficult to constantly maintain such a high caliber of art, and the traveling premise prevented a lot of assets from being reused, which was made even more challenging by how much of the crew were working remotely. Budget, time, and scheduling further prevented the series from having 18 chapters as McHale first envisioned. That number was chopped down to 10, although most of what was scrapped came from the previous pitch Bible, a majority of which I already highlighted. This is where the mystical book premise was dropped for simplicity's sake, and the new moniker of Over the Garden Wall was adopted. That's ironic, considering that afterwards it would be continued through a print medium. To tie in with its television debut, comic publisher Boom Studios began to produce a line of comics based on Over the Garden Wall. Now to my knowledge, the recent ongoing series is mostly based on vague, unused concepts from the miniseries done by some of its storyboard artists and writers. Patrick McHale did do a bit of consulting, but he claimed that they were mostly their own thing. However, McHale did write 5 issues prior to the ongoing book, a special and a 4-issue miniseries, and these feel right at home with the rest of the episodes. Most of them directly tie into the introduction of a select episode, or provide backstory to the characters, are loaded with callbacks and Easter eggs, include sheet music to songs both old and new, and even take some of the characters into different directions. We see the Woodsman develop his fear of losing his family to the beast, Beatrice nearly reveals her deal with Adelaide to the brothers, and the Highwayman goes from a funny-looking guy with cool animation to a threatening criminal who will hurt you if you cross him. He's the Highwayman. Most importantly, 2 rejected episodes found new purpose on the printed page. The concept of the one-shot special about a crew of Commonwealth patriots sailing around a field in a tricorn hat was meant to be the 3rd chapter, but it was rejected in favor of School Town Follies because those animals were just so darn cute. Last but certainly not least, Issue 3 of McHale's miniseries involved Beatrice believing that Wirt and Greg had been turned into animals, which was an idea behind a multi-episode arc outlined in the Pitch Bible. I like the detail that Wirt transforms into an animal that is either a bear or a dog. Nobody can tell which. I highly recommend you pick up the first trade paperback that collects these nearly canonical comics, or at least I hope you can find it for a decent price now that it's out of print. They are a welcome addition to this world and are oozing with charm, especially this one page where Greg is in the background of every panel.
He's just standing there, menacingly!
If you want to see and learn more about what I talked about today, I highly recommend picking up The Art of Over the Garden Wall. It beautifully presents all of the background art and designs you could ever want, and I cross-referenced a lot of the info it mentioned with the creator episode commentaries on the DVD. An insane amount of planning and talent went into making this one of the greatest projects in Cartoon Network's history. The final chapter alone had half an episode's worth of material left on the cutting room floor. Through all I've discussed today, I hope that I've illustrated how the road to Over the Garden Wall was riddled with changes and imperfections. Just like the miniseries itself, there's so much history hidden in plain sight. Next time you take that little black train, remember the journey that it took to reach the unknown.
And so the story is complete, and everyone is satisfied with the ending.
I'm sorry, what is that, and what is the fastest way to kill it?